Welcome to episode 110 of Nobody Special.
On this episode, we talk about Pastor Rodney Howard-Browne.
The Gospel Outpost presents Nobody Special. Hey everyone, welcome to Nobody Special, two nobodies talking about the somebody who matters. I'm Danny, the host and plague doctor of Nobody Special.
And I'm Caleb, you're the host of Nobody Special. This is a podcast where two generations of people talk about God, pop culture, politics, and everything in between, all not taking any of it too seriously.
And at this point, the problem in our culture, in being a podcast that talks about pop culture, politics, and everything in between, is that there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
So thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Nobody Special. No, what? Caleb, time is not real anymore.
Right? I think that we recorded our last episode, that was probably about 3 months ago?
I swear it was 3 weeks ago.
Right?
I was thinking about it. No, both of us had this too, thinking,
it is crazy.
Oh my gosh, did we forget to tape for 2 weeks straight?
Yeah.
And then thought like, no, it's just been, that's been how it is. I have kind of noticed that at this point it's starting to even out.
Right.
I've kind of found normal a bit and I'm getting back into a groove, which probably means this whole thing is going to be over soon and I'll have to find the groove again. But Caleb, I do think this whole thing about the thing going on, which we're not going to say because we all know.
Coronavirus.
Well, now we're done on YouTube. Darn it. I'll bleep you out. But I'm going to bleep you out by putting a virus over your mouth. No, yeah. No, I think this whole thing is my fault.
You think so?
I do. Here's why. I'm sorry. My brain is screaming bats are tasty, but that's not where I want to go with this.
Bats are tasty.
Try and get into sports about once every 3 years.
Yeah.
I do. I try and get into sports once every 3 years. I tried, last time I tried, honestly tried to like watch football teams. I turned on the TV to a game, I think it was the Super Bowl, and I realized I didn't have cable set up in the apartment.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I was going to watch the sports game and have a sports conversation tomorrow with people about sports. And then
Are you talking about soccer?
No. Now I was going to get into soccer. I actually got everything hooked up on ESPN Plus because it's part of the bundle I have on Disney Plus and Hulu, which, to be honest, have been getting way more work than ESPN. And then I watched a quarter of a game, and then they canceled sports.
Yeah.
They just canceled. Actually, asked a few people. Actually, I asked in order to get closer to a few other people to have conversations, and then they just canceled sports. This whole thing is my fault.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I canceled sports.
Danny has a curse on him.
I'm sorry I ate that bat. I don't know why I keep going there. I don't.
Gosh.
Anyway,
bats are tasty.
What have you been up to?
So,
this is like the dumbest. This is the dumbest transition I've ever attempted. Like, do things. Yes. Anything fun on Hulu that you're interested in watching?
No, I don't have Hulu. So.
Oh yeah, no. The Lego show.
Lego show.
Yes,
oh yeah, I was supposed to go there, wasn't I? You were setting me up.
No, I totally forgot about that.
Lego show. Yeah, I do.
Right.
My whole childhood is Legos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've always been into like building that kind of stuff. It's been
even
really cool.
till today.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't have a girlfriend. But you know.
Tease up the joke. Walk away. Sports are canceled, Danny. Sports are canceled. Please keep talking. The longer you let me talk, the closer I'll get to the joke.
And anyways, yeah, I've always been obsessed with Legos. They're just so much fun to build and be creative with. And they're just awesome, so yeah, that show looks great.
Yeah.
And I do want to watch it.
We should check it out after we tape tonight.
I mean, because I've always been interested in like watching like the Food Network things where it's like they're building a cake,
Right.
or like
those shows are amazing.
the pumpkin carving ones. But this is Legos, so I mean, it's even better.
I have gone through every episode of Great British Bake Off, and that is the angriest I've ever gotten at a reality TV show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you were there for part of it. I was like, that's garbage. That is absolute garbage. Why are you kicking? That's wrong. That cake was much better. Hey, Paul Hollywood. Paul Hollywood, you stink. You stink so much. Anyway,
dang.
I get it.
You have some feelings about that.
I really do.
There's a lot of tension built up. I can feel it.
For a pleasant thing about baking cakes.
Yeah.
Very upset.
Yeah. But I mean, other than that, I've been outside a bit, trying to be outside because I know, right? It is bad. I shouldn't have, but I did. But I really like being outdoors, and and I couldn't not.
What I found, I was actually gonna bring this up at the end, and I may circle back to it. What I found is everybody is going through this and coping in different ways and trying to push back in different ways, and it's interesting to see that happen. I actually have a blog post that's going to come out on a few more of my thoughts, probably more harshly put than they needed to be, but we'll see. But everybody is struggling through this, but in different ways, and it's important that all of us give each other grace and encourage each other in the process. I mean, just because we haven't, as a globe, had to quarantine in forever. It hasn't happened. No one has a memory of having to quarantine globally, and all of us are just trying to figure it out. And I think the church can play an important role in that, but as of late, I would say certain aspects of said church, not all of them, not all of them, a lot of them are doing great, some of them not so much, and so Caleb, I think you actually get to join us on this podcast on a pastoral grievances episode, which I normally wait to do when you're not here. All my solo episodes tend to be pastoral grievances. Here's why.
Yeah, it is true. You're a basketball guy.
I stand by everything in that. My Kenneth Copeland episode, I stand behind it.
That guy.
Yeah.
That guy.
All right, but here's why. I have tried to not, as a pastor of sorts, I have tried to not drag you into these conversations. That's honestly, I know that sounds as
why
if
can't I be in these conversations? Am I not allowed to?
Well, it's
judge pastors.
So, growing up, I called my brother an idiot all the time.
How?
The dark side over here. I called my brother an idiot all the time.
Right.
Now, do I think that my brother's an idiot?
Yes.
Maybe. But no. Then somebody else called him an idiot. And I've never been so mad in my life. Like, excuse me?
Yeah.
You called my brother an idiot? Excuse me. I earned that privilege to call my brother an idiot. He's an idiot to me. He's a saint to you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing of, as a pastoral type, my criticism is sometimes more brotherly than just kind of like pastors these days, which that's where I'm trying to not have it turn into.
Right.
And it's just kind of a different, I'm not saying I'm better than you. I just don't want to drag you down that rabbit hole.
But Kenneth Copeland.
But today, apparently, this was your idea for a topic, and I'm like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, I had a friend text me and recommend this topic. So I was like, yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
But real quick.
He wants to talk about Rodney Howard-Browne.
Yes.
But first, we can't not touch on the thing Kenneth Copeland did, right?
Yeah.
Kenneth Copeland blew coronavirus away. We did it. We did it. We did it. And someone immediately said, someone needs to remix this. And then someone did. it was pretty awesome. I'm gonna be honest. It's pretty
kind
sweet.
of grooving, yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I blew
the wind god, wind god. No, yeah.
But the thing about him, okay, I was watching clips last night before I was going to bed.
Why?
And I didn't
That is not the time to watch that.
Right. I was literally
check into your bed for Kenneth Copeland.
Freaking
That's
scared to go to sleep.
I'm sorry.
I don't know why, but this is really odd. He creeps me out like a lot. And I literally, I'm not even exaggerating this at all. I was like, I have Google as my like little things that turns my lights out. So I was like, hey Google, turn my lights off, and the lights went off, and it was like the first time in 10 years I was like, there's someone in the darkness. It's Kenneth watching me.
Yipes.
With his creepy eyes.
These are all our personal opinions,
yes,
and in no way an indictment on his character or his legal team should they find this one.
But he scares me. I don't know what it is about him, but he just has this creepy aspect to him.
I think there's it's the speed that he switches between grandpa friendly and angry. Like
right?
It's
that is
switch.
true.
It's the switch speed that tends to draws people in and then explodes in their face and then draws them back in. It's like but I mean I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of the Kenneth Copeland theology. I think there are some major flaws in the theology as it pertains to the prosperity gospel being just a large heretical steaming pile of garbage. Is that one too far? Okay, good.
I think we're good on that.
There's and they draw people in through these false promises they can't keep, and then they do these things that are clothed in spirituality but not in factuality, and that's a problem. I mean, Kenneth, he blew at the camera and said he blew the wind of God and coronavirus blew away. And the only thing I could think as I saw that is, I don't know why he's doing this. There was a pastor who declared that it was already over on May 29th. He already declared that it was over.
Yep.
And that pastor's name? Kenneth Copeland. So, like, what happened to May 29th prayer? How do you explain that you declared it defeated, and then someone on the internet who had a level of petty that I aspire to figured out that it was the day the deaths started spiking? Whoops.
Yeah.
First of all, why you check that inspired, I don't know. But I mean, like, how do you how do we justify this thing that isn't actually bringing people quote unquote prosperity and is just asking them to donate money to them, including the other pastor, Tammy Faye Baker's ex-husband, who was indicted on multiple fraud charges. He was not because of this, because of something else. He was asked by the state of New York to stop selling his a miracle cure water for $100 a pop because it didn't do anything and was fraudulent.
Yeah.
It was no, I can't say that. Nope. Sorry, keep going.
Keep going. I wasn't saying anything.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, the whole thing. And I watched this one YouTube person, I can't remember. I think it's like Gus something.
Gus Johnson, yeah.
Yeah, he did a video on Kenneth Copeland.
Yeah.
And it was like...
Yeah.
It was
tore
on
him
the...
a new one. I mean, like, he really ripped into him, and I don't disagree with anything he said.
Yeah, when he was, like, pointing out on the back of the Lysol... or something like bleach wipes that it gets rid of strains of coronavirus.
Yep.
And he's like, look, this thing has been around.
We knew about it.
Yeah, he started doing the whole conspiracy thing.
Yeah, we knew about it. It's number 19.
Yeah.
It's COVID-19. It's been around, but this is a different strand because that's how these things change.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
it's a novel.
That's how
it's
viruses
not just a coronavirus.
Yeah.
It's a novel coronavirus, which means it's a new strand of coronavirus.
It's
But-
just the flu, though, but stronger.
Yeah. Anyways, we're not talking about him today.
Sorry.
Although we did just go on a rant about how much we
Right.
dislike him, but that's all right.
No, it's not that. It's not that I dislike him. It's that I think his theology is dangerous and pushing people away from God. And that's the stance I have. I'm not trying to poo-poo on Kenneth Copeland, but I have no patience towards a person that pushes people away from God. And that is the point that I'm okay calling out the heretic, is if they're in actuality, in factuality, pushing people away out of the gospel by promising financial blessing or prosperity or a fake kind of a healing, then I have a problem. Or endangering their well-being, I have a problem on that.
Yeah.
Speaking of endangering their well-being, this brings us to Tampa. And Pastor Rodney Howard-Browne of the River Fellowship, it's a big church in the Tampa, Florida area. Actually, it's a very big church. This is a man who has also had influence to the president. He got to pray over him at not the inauguration, but pretty close to it. He's very close to Paula White, those kinds of people, and has a history of controversy that have brought him to a few different things. But Caleb, tell us about this topic and where it came from and why we're talking about it.
Yeah. So we're talking about this mainly because I already said this, but one of my buddies texted me and said we should talk about it. And I didn't know anything about this, mainly because I don't really keep up to date with a lot of things, although I should. But
Right.
yeah, it's kind of a crazy story. You know, this pastor kind of refused to shut down his church when, you know, it was not a great idea.
There was a stay-at-home order given.
Yes, yeah.
And this is important because I'm trying to be factually true first and then kind of give our hot takes. I do think this is important, is that the state of Florida did issue, or no, Tampa actually, it was before the state of Florida's.
Yeah.
Was it? It was close.
I'm guessing.
Anyway, they issued a stay-at-home order based on public health concerns, because if this thing spreads, it overwhelms the hospitals and people die out of very, very preventable things. And according to the Tampa, I don't remember the county, but according to the Tampa cops, they arrested him because he still kept having services in defiance of the executive stay-at-home order, and it included about 400 to 500 people that attended the church during a Sunday morning. Now, to the defense of Pastor Howard-Browne, they did take precautions that people they encouraged people that were concerned about their health or had any symptoms. They encouraged them to stay home. Every person that came in did get a bit of hand sanitizer. All staff wore gloves. The church enforced a 6-foot distance between people in the auditorium and in overflow spaces.
Right.
The farmers market in coffee area, there was a 6-foot distance enforced and marked out on the floor. And the big thing is that the church spent $100,000 on hospital grade purification throughout the church to it's rated to kill microbes, and including those in the corona family. So to their credit, and to the statement that Pastor Howard-Browne made, these are things that that he felt were better than every other place that stayed open, because they did above and beyond everything asking them, and that according to him, they had multiple conversations to the cops talking about this, and then after the order got placed, they didn't come back and talk again, and he just kind of assumed everything had been okay and met, and instead he got arrested.
Mm-hmm.
The sheriff, he said that is not what happened. Actually, they both have disagreeing stories on this, and it's partially because they're both very big organizations that are complex things. There's a lot going on, but the whole thing is messed up, and the biggest thing is that Pastor Howard-Browne, he kept having church, and they issued an arrest warrant, and then Pastor turned himself in. And then he was bailed out for $500 after 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So those are, as I understand them, the facts of the situation. Is that there is a defiance of a stay-at-home order under the understanding of the First Amendment, and there's some people upset about this.
Yeah.
Hot takes hit me.
Hot takes. Straight off of this. Okay, I think obviously he shouldn't have met. I think it was irresponsible, and especially for that many people.
Why should he not have met?
I think that first, number one, when the government asks you to do something, not asks, they're enforcing it, you listen. And if you really think it is, like, if it is something that goes against what the Bible says in every way, shape, and form.
Right.
Yeah, let's push back on that.
Yeah.
For sure. But for something that is in the safety and the well-being of everyone,
right.
To provide, life instead of, more deaths, like, that should be a no-brainer. Obviously they have enough money to push everything online. If they're able to wipe down everything, and
their counter argument to that, if they're able to bring in $100,000 in air filters, purification systems, like, overnight, then they have the money to do it. They definitely do. Their thing is because of their inner, or a good amount of their constituency is in an area that doesn't have access, according to him, and I kind of disagree with this a little bit. They either don't have access to the internet, or their internet isn't fast enough to play a video. And I don't know about that one. I'm having trouble. That could just be a cultural thing I'm not getting, or an area of Tampa I'm not familiar with. But internet is almost treated as public right at this point, and most people have it, and it can. I mean, I was streaming stuff, 240p, but still streaming stuff as the internet came out. So
yeah,
I find it
That's
hard to believe.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, and even if that is the case, like, don't do it. Give people, like, a reading plan. Encourage them to read their Bibles, pray. Do Zoom calls. You can give. I mean, my church did this. I mean, they gave me and a bunch of other leaders in the students group. They gave us Zoom license accounts.
Right. Sure.
So we're able to host small groups with our kids.
Right.
And so, like, they could have done that. Although, I mean, I guess that's
internet access. Yeah.
But still, like, I just think in any way, shape, or form, it is not the right thing to do.
Yeah. And even that, I mean, there are, to that specific complaint, I feel there are other answers they could have found instead of just open the church up. So, I don't know. Do you, so, I don't even know where to start. Do you want to, I mean, do you have any other thoughts? Do you want me to jump in with my hot takes? I mean, honestly, I don't even know where to start with this. It's
like, I think that it is great, the heart behind wanting to keep open the church. I think, don't get me wrong.
Is it?
I think community is great.
Yes.
I think
I'm with you so far.
I think that church is great. Corporate worship, all these things are what God calls us to do with
Absolutely.
our church family.
Absolutely.
But not in times like this.
Right.
It's not oppression. It's just being smart.
Yeah. So that's kind of the problem I have, is that even on my Facebook feed, there's a lot of people that feel this is oppression against the church, and this is just a means of state government control. Actually, one person has gone so far as to say that the COVID-19 is just a means of government control of churches. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go that far.
I love conspiracy theories.
I think they're opportunistic in that there are pockets of politics that are trying to take advantage of the situation, clearly, but I don't think they concocted this thing in order to do that. That is straight nonsense. Sorry, I'm going hot takes. So the question, I do feel this is an unconstitutional overextending of the police force. I do feel that because of the First Amendment. I do feel that is applicable. With that said, because I don't think as Americans it's this thing that all of us need to be quick to just give up all the freedoms because big government. I don't think the answer is big government. With that said, I do not think he should have opened his doors. This is just my thoughts on it. And to be clear, other people, they put their thoughts in to the point of death threats towards him. Hey, that's not okay either.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. Don't
Are those Christians or non-Christians?
Oh, who knows? It's the internet.
The internet, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't feel as if he should have opened, because it's a gambling that doesn't gain anything. And I do kind of question the heart of why he did it. I mean, it came off as, well, no, I'm not going to do it because our church isn't afraid. And it came off as a little bit aggrandizing of the self to demonstrate that they're not afraid of anything, including government or coronavirus. And that, you never see that kind of braggadocious behavior come out of Christ or encouraged in any place in Scripture.
Yeah.
In fact, you see the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And the thing I'm the most concerned about in this is that this is going to create an issue where everything was fine, because now we have to have a debate. Does the state carry the ability to tell a church they are unable to meet? And do they feel comfortable exercising that power over a church? And that is a problem, because up until this point, we were fine. It was just an agreed upon, hey, we're not going to do it. The state isn't going to exercise that authority over a church, because the church is going to do the thing in the best interest of the community to actually care about their neighbor by staying home. And there's historical precedents of the church doing that.
Right. I mean, it's not being fearful.
Right.
Like all of the churches who are listening, it's not a fearful move.
No.
It's stepping in to sacrifice something for those who need to be fearful of this thing.
Right.
And I mean, it's just amazes me that people can't see that.
Right. Well, at this point, the best way to love our neighbor is to stay home.
Yeah.
And I do think there's I don't think it's as cut and dry as that, but in this case, I think you could easily apply those principles. Because there is a point that the church, they do have to say, okay, we actually are being oppressed by government. I mean, I had a person explain it as, because this is a means of public health concern. That still applies to Christians. There are Christians getting corona and dying, and there are non-Christians getting it, and people don't understand why that is, but it's happening. God is sovereign. Praise be to God. through good, bad, and everything in between.
Yeah.
So to actually care about our neighbor is in the best interest to adhere to the stay-at-home orders and close our doors as best as possible to not spread this thing. If the government then goes, hey, a church can't meet, period, that's the day everyone get in your car, stroll up to your church, and prepare to get arrested.
Right.
And I think that kind of civil disobedience in that case, and this is not that case. This isn't that time that the church is going, it is a crime to be a Christian, but they're saying, please don't congregate in groups. And there's a distinct difference between those two sentences. But if the state ever goes, it is a crime to be a Christian, it is time to gather together and bring our own handcuffs and just put them on beforehand, because that's how serious we should be about that.
Yeah, and I honestly don't think this current situation is unconstitutional, mainly because
of the arrest.
Yeah, mainly because if it's being treated equal to everything around it. Now, if there's a conference for like some random business thing where there's hundreds of people meeting together,
right,
and nobody does anything about that, but they arrest,
right,
what's his face, like, then you can kind of see that there's a bit of bias there,
right?
But like, I don't think that that's what's going on. I mean, I think that honestly, this needed to happen. Like, if I was in law enforcement, I'm a Christian, I would have done it, because I do believe that church is important, very important, but not in situations like this. Not that it's not important, but that the situation changes things.
Right.
And things need to change in the way we present ourselves.
Yes, I don't think the state's the person to make that distinction. And that's kind of the point that I'm at, and why I'm upset, because now that's a distinction and a conversation that's going to be had by attorneys instead of by the church. And that to me is the problematic part, is instead of doing this, it's now going to be determined by the state instead of by the church. Because I don't think he should have met. I don't think any of that, it was a good idea. I don't. But I do think it was an overextending of specific government force to shut that down.
What if the church isn't making the proper decisions that need to be made?
Then I still do not feel it's the state's a decision to do that because of the First Amendment. I mean, that needs to be intact, because this
what is the First Amendment? Just so we can clarify with everyone.
Freedom of speech, and the government can't interfere in the assembly of churches, basically. I'm paraphrasing. There's probably an attorney out there that knows better than me, who actually, he was unavailable today. I checked my attorney friend. Yeah. So they are trampling on some of the constitutional given rights under the guise of this is public health crisis. Now, this is the problem I found in Christianity overall, is that the answer many Christians turn to is government, and that isn't the answer in a ton of cases. I mean, presidency, the entire thing is, it's treated on both ends as if this is a Christ figure or a presentation of God in the White House. And that is untrue, unbiblical, and unhealthy to view the presidency and governmental force in that manner.
Right.
Now, I think this pastor, I think a lot of the decisions he made, and I'm not just talking about this, are poor decisions. I don't think the answer is governmental draconian enforcement of this kind of thing, and because it's and I hate to say slippery slope argument, but it's a slippery slope, and he's just kind of got his bottle of dish kind of cleaner and just pouring it out all over the tarp. I mean, where
my brain operates differently is, to be honest, although I am an American and I
Yeah.
think the Constitution is pretty great,
Right.
like I don't want to let that get in the way of the safety and well-being of others.
Sure.
And
Correct.
when the church is being dumb and I think somebody needs
Mm-hmm.
to step in, I'm fine with that being the government.
If they had been forcing people to come to church, I'd be more okay with it. Of governmental force, sorry. If they're trying to force people to that, and granted, there is a case to be made for spiritual abuse. Again, this is why I don't enjoy this kind of situations, because it
Right.
puts so many cracks into a system that was fine and didn't need to have these cracks. If he was telling people, hey, if you don't come to church, then you are fearful and here are consequences, then yeah, absolutely, because that is a clear threat on another person, then I am okay on governmental force in that point.
I mean, me
But on
personally,
this,
I mean, I think we probably disagree a little bit here. Like, I mean, I think that it's fine for the government to step in, mainly because, like,
in
the
what
same
cases, I guess,
the same way as I believe in the Second Amendment, but if someone in their right mind, isn't in the right mind, they shouldn't have a gun.
Right.
Like in the same way of that sense.
Right.
Like, I think that it's fine to strip it away. I do agree with you in the sense that it could be a slippery slope for sure.
Right.
Like this could lead to things like you said where they're now considering
right,
what they can push and what they can't now.
right,
And and that can be bad.
right.
But like for this specific scenario, I'm 100% all about it. And that sounds kind of weird, but
I guess, when is it too far?
I think it's too far when it is something that goes against what Christ would want biblically.
Sorry, governmental force. When have they gone too far?
Within the church? Or what are we talking about now?
At what point? Because at this point, I mean, just a counter argument, we are talking about giving up freedoms by mandate of the state, not out of the grace in our hearts. Because there is a fundamental difference between those two things. If I'm giving it up of my own accord as a means of grace, then that I think is 100% biblical, and I'm all about it. If it is being taken, it is not a gift of grace because it is being taken.
That's what I was saying.
At
like,
what point is the governmental force? What point is it an overextension?
I think it's an overextension if it, like I said before, if it's anything that, and obviously this is weird because the government would have to kind of know what Christ would want for us. But if it is something that...
But why is the government deciding that? That's my point, is I can't trust government to decide the thing Christ wants.
I mean, to be honest, I think it's going to go out of control no matter what. I mean, like, we can't control it.
Right.
That's what I'm saying is, like, I don't care because I know... I mean, this sounds a bit kind of high road, even though I'm not meaning it like that at all. Because I know God is going to have everything in control. And I know that he places authorities and laws in place to do certain things. Although it could be negative on the church, God still has the victory.
Right.
So genuinely, like, although I think it is important to fight for our freedom, I think sometimes Americans do get too caught up in laws in the sense that, like, we think that if that is in place, that we are bound. When we look at churches in China and all these places where it's literal communism, and Christ is still moving.
Right, but
that sounds like real.
Now you're on the other side of the argument by claiming that these areas of governmental extension are to be avoided. I'm trying to figure out, where does it become governmental overextension? Because at that point, the church does need to stand up against it. And there's major precedents in history of doing that also.
Right.
If it is any kind of oppression, the church needs to be the people speaking above and beyond everything else, any kind of oppression of any kind.
I mean, where do we draw the line? I think, to be honest, I don't know. I mean, I haven't thought this much into it.
Right.
I mean, I would love to have an answer, but
Right.
I really don't. I mean, like I said, you know, as far as on our side, if it pushes anything that is, you know, outside of what is biblical, like for this, I'm all right with it because I know it's what Christ would have wanted, if you know what I mean.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it is. It's really twisted.
I get the thing that you're saying, but I disagree on the roadmap to get there. I mean, I can get to New York by going to California, but why would I? I think there needs to be a better path other than a police force to have enforced this thing. I mean, this is the point that I actually appreciate denominations, because there is a structural means of accountability that carry the power to take him out if they feel that.
Where it's the church. So is this a non-denominational?
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
There's a denominational structure in place that if people start stepping out, that they can go, "You're done, get out." And I've seen that happen in a few different places, and to be honest, at times it was needed. And that type of accountability.
And it works, and it's not the government doing it; it's within our church. Like I think that is great for sure. But I mean, like we said, not all churches are like that, so it's tough.
I mean, I agree on everything that you're saying except the conclusion of police involvement. I think that's the slippery area that the church is gonna, and I've been trying to ring this bell for a while. The church has to figure out ways to operate and be holy that don't connect to governmental authority. And I've seen this problem growing up in the 90s and 80s and all this, is that I could be quote unquote righteous by being obedient to a Judeo-Christian culture. Only the thing that produced is just people that were lazy in their faith that could be obedient to statutes and still have no commitment to Christ in the process. I think that's problematic. If I'm trying to be obedient to Christ, then I need to do that above any statute that's out there, instead of going, well, no, the government told me this is okay, therefore it's not a sin. I mean, that's the whole argument I hate about porn and marijuana, is that, well, no, it's not a crime, so it's fine. That is the laziest argument I've ever heard. There are things that can be terrible to a person that aren't a crime, but I still don't think need to be criminalized. So I think there needs to be a deeper thing going on other than police force.
What do you think is the line?
I appreciate the First Amendment, and not it's a good, well, all right, I'll go back. Prophets, priests, and kings. This was a good system of accountability all the way around. Kings, they were governmental oversight, that they did their thing, they governed their area. The priests governed the churches in that area, and the prophets, they spoke to the people the word of God, and these three things, when working in conjunction together, gave each other a mutual accountability to be able to say the things that need to be said, to challenge each other, and to promote a well-being of the other two. And this is a structure that's kind of missing in the church. I think the Christian church needs to have, and I'm not trying to call it a check and balance, but a balance between governmental authority that is influenced by the Word of God. And there is a justification to be made on the government isn't able to interfere in a church's ability to meet, because as soon as they start doing that, that opens up some really nasty doors and precedents that is dangerous, I feel. Also, in that case, the church needs to be humble enough to go, because it is a means of it is a health crisis. We are going to meet in our homes in a way that we have never been able to do in history, that it's still the best possible to be in community, and still choose to do that on our own as a means of grace and to proclaim gospel to our neighbor instead of bragging about how strong I am and I can take it.
I do think that is a very good thing. I mean, like, I think that, like, are we as churches being irresponsible ourselves by not putting ourselves in a check? I mean, checks and balances. I mean, it is a great
It's a failure on the profit end, to be honest.
I mean, I think that's kind of a question: is are non-denominational churches being irresponsible in that sense from protecting ourselves? From, like you said, even needing government intervention.
Right.
Because when that happens, I mean, it is a negative thing.
Yeah. To the community. Because then Gus Johnson makes a video, and makes us all look bad.
Right.
Like, exactly. I mean, it's a bad witness of the Christian faith to have Kenneth Copeland blowing it away, telling people to still meet, to have this guy open his church and say, but we enforced the 6-foot thing, and I've seen the pictures. No, you didn't. And like, well, they came in together. Well, that's how this spreads. Like, this is literally, that's the thing we're afraid of.
Right.
So I think the point is stay according to the Bill of Rights on a state perspective. And also the church needs to be humble in its approach to its community. I mean, all throughout, there's actually a few different instances where the church has had to face plague, and they're very interesting on how they handled it. There was a couple in 200, one in 1850s, and the Black Plague around the 14th century. Oh yeah, Black Death. Now there are a few things they did that I thought were incredible or just crazy interesting, is that in all these cases, the church for a time agreed to not meet in a corporate kind of a building, but they never gave up on the community, especially in the 200s, as people got scared of the sick, because they didn't really have like doctors then. They were like, I don't know, drain their blood, see what happens. Like, that's not a medical procedure. They threw their dying out in the street, and Christians went to take care of them, because the Bible's very clear on take care of the sick and needy and broken. Yeah. So a lot of Christians died in that, but they died very happy in serving God. And actually out of that, they became stronger, because they all made the decision to stare down death, to care over somebody else in need. And out of that, those that came out of it
awesome.
Were stronger, because they got to say, I saw death and I didn't back down. Yeah. And it got to the point that the emperors of that time, they said, like, hey, we look really bad. Can we do the thing the Christians are doing? And everyone said, in theory, sure, but you first, Like, right. Yeah. No, homie. I'm like, I ain't going there.
That's crazy cool.
Also in the 14th kind of the century, they did a similar thing. As people are dying of the Black Plague, it was Christians who stepped up and work towards caring over the sick, broken, and needy. And I think kind of the same thing happened. A lot of them died from it because they are treating people as best as they could with the little medical knowledge they had, as best they could. But they understood that it was an opportunity to be Christ to these people in need, and people came to Christ because of that, and then died. And I think everyone, especially prosperity gospel, keeps kind of waiting to have it say, and then everyone was miraculously healed, but that doesn't happen.
Right.
That's not the goal. That isn't the goal. The goal is bring people to Christ and they get to be in eternity. All of us die at some point. Sorry, I'm on a soapbox and I've been monologuing.
I think, no, this is really good.
And got me all riled up right now.
I actually read an article today, and it brings up a great point in that a positive thing that is affecting the church through this virus is that it is kind of, it's knocking out all of the consumeristic churchgoers.
Yeah.
And one could say, yeah, that's not great, because it's kind of pushing them out. But it's showing the people who are really, keeping up with their faith. That it's stripping down the comfort aspect.
Right.
It's stripping down the community, meaning that you have to intentionally make an effort to be and stay in community during these times.
Right.
And they made some other point too, but it was really interesting. That's what that kind of reminds me of is like during these times you have two choices. I mean, it's either to back down or, stay up and keep on pushing for community.
Right.
And loving people during this time.
Well, and not just community, but if there are people in a need, the church needs to be the first people that go, I'm going to brave my way into Publix because I have a neighbor who is 85 and should not go. I'm going to go for her. And then I might just even buy her groceries because who cares at this point? I mean, there is an aspect of Christianity that I do think is okay to be crazy, to do dumb stuff, to open up doors during a time they should be closed. But to Rodney Howard-Browne, it felt very arrogant in that it wasn't trying to accomplish any of that. It wasn't trying to care over the sick. It was, I want to keep having service because this is just an oppression of the church. And I'm like, that it just felt arrogant. But I've appreciated the ebb and flow throughout church history of starting in the Old Testament and up until today, there is this ebb and flow of people come in, and then at some point there is a pruning that although a number of Christians, quote unquote Christians, go down, they are stronger after it because they faced down oppression and had to do it by trusting the will of God. Yeah. And to get through that is way stronger than anything else. So,
yeah. Man, this has been a really interesting conversation.
Yeah. So I do think, just kind of final.
Yes.
There is a point that it's okay to go out there to break the social distancing and do all that. If a person is in need or sick, go ahead and do it. That is a means of Christian expression. Go ahead.
Yeah.
If you feel God is calling you to do that. I'm now trying to protect myself legally on this podcast when I say that. No, I mean, care over the sick, care over the broken, but do it in the same way that they did it in the book of Daniel of, I know God can protect me from this, but even if he doesn't, I'll still praise his name.
Yeah.
And if I go into it thinking that, then I've found a God that's unstoppable.
Yeah.
What do you think? Am I missing?
No,
I went on
a
tirade.
I think that this...
I am so sorry. Riled up over here.
I think that, really, there are some good points brought up. I think that, this is a great opportunity. We've even brought this up on past episodes, but, it's a great opportunity to love your neighbor.
Yeah.
And there's many ways to do it, and it's a bit different now because it's not only just loving your neighbor by buying them groceries, but like there's more meaning to it now because they know that you're intentionally putting yourself out there, and putting yourself in potential danger,
right?
So that they can, have some Cheerios,
right? Yeah, them grocery store workers doing the Lord's work right now.
Right, yeah, and all those people, I think we did bring up a good, and I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on it, is do you think non-denominational churches are being irresponsible by not putting themselves within a kind of checks and balances thing. Which
like a can of worms.
I know, right? I just want to hear people's thoughts on that because I think that's super interesting, and I've never thought about that in this way before.
For perspective, we're both in non-denominational churches.
Yes,
but we won't be offended at your opinion.
Yeah, no. I mean, and the thing is a lot of non-denominational churches have great elder boards.
Right.
Like I trust the church I go to.
Right.
With everything I've got because
right.
I know and I've seen
right.
what they've done through these times.
If
and
the elder board has teeth, a good elder board can tell the pastor, "Hey, you're fired." At the end.
Yeah.
And if they don't have that power, I think there's a problem with the elder board.
Yeah. Or even to censor the theology of what they're saying, anything like that.
The best accountability partners I've had are the people who can shut me down immediately because they're like, I hold power over you, so it's a humble place to be of putting someone else in that kind of I will shut you down.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'll actually pay attention now. Hold on. Yes. So.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was a super interesting topic.
Sorry for going on a tirade there for 15 minutes. I apologize.
I don't care.
I've had a lot of time to think.
I don't care.
Speaking of me thinking, I had one extra thing I wanted to say. Is that okay?
Yes.
And I brought this up at the beginning. Everyone is stressed. Everyone is doing weird things to handle stress. Overall, people are going through this in a means of the body is treating it as stress and trauma, but it's unable to identify either of those because there's nothing going on. So just my encouragement to everybody is be patient. Love each other very, very much in the best way possible because everybody is handling this poorly. Mm-hmm. And this, I'm sorry, am I wrong?
No, I mean, yeah, no, it's true.
There are people that are way too scared and way too cavalier, and I haven't found too many people in the middle, and that is myself included. I pendulum between the two. I don't stay in the middle. I wave at it as I drive by. Hi, I'm in the middle now when we're gone. But be patient with each other. Because everyone's processing trauma and stress from an unidentifiable source that they can do nothing about.
Yep.
So be kind to each other, care about each other, just love each other because we all need that at this point.
Yeah.
I had a lot of time to think past few days. So anyway.
Yeah.
Caleb, what's all the things we say at the end?
Go check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Nobody Special Podcast. Yep, there it is. And if you want to DM us there, you can ask us questions, say hello. We'd love to hear from you guys. And and also if you want to check us out on iTunes, give us 5 stars. We're on Spotify.
4 or 5.
Are we on SoundCloud? Are we SoundCloud rappers now? No, we're not. You took us off, didn't you?
Not yet.
Darn it.
If
I gotta turn my hat back now.
If you're listening to this episode, you're not on SoundCloud. You might be listening to episode 102 because I think that's about where it stopped being on SoundCloud.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I'd have to go in every week and delete and force push, and I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe I will. Who knows? Probably not.
You can also check us out at thegospeloutpost.com/nobodyspecial, and you can ask us questions there. You can even find our episodes on there if you don't feel like, listening through a podcast app. And also on YouTube.
And a whole bunch of other stuff on there, too.
Yeah, I do blogs.
And Bible studies at least once a week.
You can buy Danny's book on 2 Timothy.
You just email me. I'll send you the PDF. I don't. Especially now. I'm not going to be the only guy selling his book.
Yeah. And YouTube, if you want to subscribe, if you like what you're seeing, or if you want to comment down below and say hello, or ask us questions there as well, that is a great way to reach us.
Yeah.
I think that's it, right?
We do a lot. Sorry, I might cut the whole thing right here.
Yeah.
No, but we appreciate everyone that tunes in, especially during this where people stop tuning into the internet. So if you're still paying attention, we adore you. We love you so much. Please stay safe.
Yeah.
And know that God is on the throne, even if it doesn't feel like it. So
yeah. Also, happy Easter, guys.
Happy Easter.
We didn't even bring that up, but
yeah, we just drove right by.
If you're listening on Friday, it's Good Friday, and so. Yeah, I mean, this is a great time to remember what Christ did for us and to really let the gospel just kind of sink in and feel the gravity and the weight, although it's good to do it all the time, but it's time to celebrate because Christ is risen. And
he is risen indeed. Yes, I get to keep my Anglican card.
I literally just edited a whole Episcopal service today, and there's a whole section of people sending in videos where it's Hallelujah, Christ is risen indeed.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool, but yeah.
It's every time in Star Wars, if they say, "May the Force be with you," most Anglicans go instinctually, "and also with you." Wait, darn it!
Yeah.
So anyway, well, that on that note, that's gonna do it for us today.
Yep.
I'm Danny,
and I'm Caleb,
and we are
Nobody Special.